All right, guys, so this is your first line of defense for algae. Once it starts really growing, like you can see all this algae that's growing out here. This was a rake that I bought at Lowe's, and then I just had some wire ties, and this is just one of those little $1 pool noodles you can get at any dollar store. And then on the end of it, I just put paracord so that you can strap it to your hand. Just put you a loop for your hand. It's ideal that it's a little bit smaller than that so it doesn't slip off. And all you do is you throw it out and then you drag it back. Now you're only going to be able to get, obviously, the algae that's within the range of your rope and how far you can throw the thing. But you can see how much of it comes up when you do that. Oh, got a knot in my paracord, but so I've already done this a lot. I don't really care to do anymore. This whole side of the lake is covered, and see the moss, the algae just comes off. You can see this is where I did some the other day. This is what's left over here. It was covered in this whole side of the cove. I piled a bunch up over here, a bunch up over there. But ultimately, this will knock down a pretty good chunk of your algae. Just doing this. And this is like immediate gratification kind of thing, because once you're done, you can obviously see a difference in the pond. Now it's a little bit of an eyesore seeing it on your banks, but it dies pretty quick. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come through here and I'm going to spray this and kill this and go around the pond and spray the rest of the pond. You can see I've got it all the way down this bank, all in the back of the cove, all the way down that bank and around the back side of this cove, which I'll show you in a minute. But really cheap tool, no big deal, easy to get it out, easy to clean the rake off. Works pretty good. They sell these online for about 110 bucks plus shipping, but it's easier just to run to Lowe's and get this little stuff and make it myself. But as you can see, it works pretty good. I mean, if you sit here and threw it out, you know, 20 times or so, you can clear out this whole little area. All right, so today I'm going to treat my algae. For the last week or so, I've been going around just the edge right here by the house and using the rake and taking it all off of this edge as much as I can. And then you take it out and it kind of leaves it spotty, then the wind blows and it piles it back up. So you can come back in and scoop the rest of that up, but I'm not going to do that. It's starting to get hot now, and I just really want it gone. So I should have done some of this sooner and it wouldn't have been such a problem, but I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I've already raked. Two, I'm going to treat the algae with copper sulfate. And then the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dye the pond. And this is just like a blue dye. And what the dye does, one, it makes your pond kind of look pretty, but more importantly is it blocks the UV from penetrating and creating more algae. So this will stop the problem from persisting, or at least slow it down. This will kill what is already in there, and the rake will get some of the bigger chunks out so that you've got less to contend with. But I will tell you, the rake is a workout for those of you that haven't done it. But if you come home every day and I do a little bit, like I'll come home and I'll throw it out about a dozen times and I'll go inside, and every day when I come home I was doing that. So I got a pretty good chunk of it out. But for those of you that know the situation with my pond, the backs of the coves back here are extremely shallow. They're about 2 foot lower than what they're supposed to be, which makes the banks really shallow and really, it's a low grade slope. So the algae just blooms a lot heavier back here than it should. And that's because of my levee back there. My dam has got holes in it and it's leaking, and then the water's running through. So I fixed a hole over there, but now it's leaking in this back corner, and basically I've got to dig up the entire levee and just redo it. But that's for a later date. For now, let's get started with some of this. So I sprayed some of this the other day. It's been a little over a week ago, and now I'm going to spray the rest of it. You don't want to put a whole lot of this in your water. I'm not really sure of the adverse effects, but any time you're adding a lot of heavy metals to the water, I'm assuming that's not good for the fish. But what they instruct you to do with this copper sulfate or any type of algae treatment where you're direct contact with the algae is you spray half the lake today, you wait 2 weeks before you spray the other half. And what that does is it allows this algae to die, and I think it depletes the water of oxygen because of the dying vegetation. But I've got an aerator going, so I think I can combat that, so I don't think it's that big a deal. I've waited only a week instead of 2 weeks. I think it'll be fine. But I'll show you guys the before and after. It's supposed to be 81 today, which you want to do it on a warm day. I believe this says, you know, do it at least 60 degrees, wherever it says it on the label. But it's going to be really warm. The hotter the day, the better, because you can actually watch the algae turn black in the same day. The next 4 days is supposed to be heavy rains out here for 4 days straight. The rains are really good because they'll push the algae to the bottom. Now the algae's still there for those of you that are trying to fish. It's still in the water and it gets hung on your baits, but it's not on the top making it look ugly. And so to mix this stuff, you can kind of see what I'm doing. All it is a crystal, and it dissolves in water like sugar or salt. So I'm putting it in a large pump sprayer. I just poured some in there. I didn't mix the exact amount. If I pour too much, it'll just stay crystallized in the bottom, and you add more water to it later, and then that'll dissolve. So it works out okay. If you put it in a little pump sprayer, sometimes if you've got too much in there, it'll clog up your nozzle and it won't spray, and you just got to run more water in there to get it to clear. But let's get this on. Let's go out and spray, and we'll turn the pond blue and we'll see what all this looks like. And just FYI, for any of those that are wondering, this copper sulfate works on any algae. So if you've got algae growing on your dock or on your deck, you can spray your deck and it'll kill the algae. If you've got it growing on your house, you can spray your house, it'll kill the algae on your house. It'll also help prevent it from growing back. I don't know how long it lasts, but it will a little bit. Anywhere you've got algae, this will kill it. So some people have trees that are really close to their houses. Algae will grow on the side of it. You can spray it with this and it'll kill it off. So let's go do some spraying. Okay, so as you can see right here, this black algae, that's the stuff that I sprayed a week ago. This green algae is still algae that's still alive that just got blown in here and mixed in. And so I'm just gonna spray the top with this. It doesn't take a whole lot, so don't feel like you need to sit there and just spray it and spray it and spray it, but I'm gonna hit everything. So having this floating dock helps a lot. So now I don't have to walk the bank to do this. And all you do is just spray over the top of it. The first few times I did this, I felt like I had to spray and just completely coat everything. You do not. I mean, you want to hit every patch, but you don't have to. So having this floating dock really comes in handy. I mean, this will push me up in here and let me spray everything. You can see how shallow it is. I mean, you can't see it probably through the camera, but it's only about 1.5 feet deep right there, if that. And basically, I'm just going to broadcast this through everything that's green. And that's it. I don't want to spray too heavy. That's enough. And then whatever it doesn't kill, I can come back in and top off later. I don't want to spray too much of this in the water if I don't have to. This treetop holds a lot of algae. So I just let the floating dock push us up in here. Where I can treat as much of this as possible. Now, it should be hot enough today to turn most of this black in just a couple of hours. So I'll come back over here before it gets dark today and show you what it looks like. I'm hoping it'll get hot enough to do that today. It should turn it black pretty quick. All right, this is like the last little bit of what I got in my sprayer, so I don't know if I hit this patch already. I think I did, but I'm gonna hit it again. Just to use up the last of it here. Now, like I said, you gotta remember, this is some heavy fibrous stuff. It kills it, but it doesn't go away. It just sinks. So it'll turn it black, the rain will hit it, and it'll sink, but it stays there. But that shows you how I treat it. And I mean, I treated it with a little less than 3 gallons, or about 3 gallons, and treated the whole pond. This is about a 3-acre pond. And so I did it with, you know, pretty much 2.5 gallons. So that literally treated the whole pond. So don't feel like you need to go and put, you know, 7 gallons and 8 gallons and 10 gallons on this. It doesn't take that much. Now, on to the pond eye. Now this stuff, this is a new brand. I haven't tried this one, but I think they all pretty much work the same. This one just said no toxic heavy metals. I thought that looked great. I don't really know if the other ones do have any metals, but I'm gonna go ahead and warn you. It says dye, it is dye. If you get it on your fingers are blue. If you get it on your clothes are blue. Everything you touch with it will be bright blue. So what I'm gonna do, I've only got this gallon and I wanna treat the whole pond. And so what you have to do is you pour a little out here. Closer to the water you get, the less splashing. Like I got a little on my deck, a little splashed on my hands. You can see how blue it is. Don't wash your hands where you just done the blue, but you can see. I mean, it's like dying Easter eggs. So I put a little there. I'm gonna go and take the trolling motor and I'm gonna move a little ways. And I'll tell you what I'm probably gonna do, just to make this more simplistic, is I'm gonna have the trolling motor moving as I dump some of this. You can still see it splashing. This is the deep end of the pond. I don't have a lot of issues with algae down here, aside from the wind blowing it from the other coves, because it's a lot deeper. So I'm not going to concentrate it down here, although it'll blend to the whole pond shortly. And 1 gallon is really not enough for this pond, but I think this was 50 bucks for this 1 gallon. So, and I definitely could have bought some more, but I didn't want it so blue it looked fake. So this won't give me complete protection, but it should give me pretty good protection. You can see basically I'm just taking a lap around the pond, dumping a little out here, a little out there. I'm helping it blend. It would naturally blend on its own to the whole pond, but this makes it so much faster. Really, I should have got 2 of these. If you use the trolling motor to churn the water up, it starts broadcasting the dye a little better. All right. I'll get out what's left in the bottle. You can see this water's already, where I put that dye, has already started to blend. Really hard to see, but if you look over here, you can kind of see the difference in the colors. Like this water looks kind of brown and dingy, and then you can see that blue hue. Now once it blends, it won't be nearly that dark, but you can see it's working. So my aerator right there helps to circulate the water. That actually makes this turn blue a lot faster. So again, I've got about a 3-acre pond. I only put 1 gallon in, and yes, I could have put in a lot more, and they probably would recommend, I don't know how to calculate gallons, but so for 1 gallon does 1 acre. So if this is 3 acres, I should have put 3 of these. But once you see how dark it gets, it would be like that color blue and would look like a completely fake looking water garden or something, and I didn't want that look. So to treat a 3-acre pond, you would need 3 of these jugs to do it the way that they recommend. Which, not to say it's not going to work with 1 gallon, it's still going to restrict some of the light. It's just not going to do it as well. So I still probably, I'm assuming I will still have some algae growth, but this will dramatically reduce it. So, but that would have been $150 to treat the pond, which isn't that big a deal when you think about how much labor would go into clearing off the algae, you know, that is going to bloom. And the copper sulfate is, I think, right at $100 after tax and everything. So that big jug, but that big jug of copper sulfate will last 2 or 3 summers if you go sparingly. All right, so you can see what's happening. This is, I think, 4 hours later. Obviously the stuff that I could reach better is turning almost black. And you can see the stuff that I couldn't reach that well is still green. It's still got some on it. It'll kill some of it, but it won't kill all of it. I'll still have to come back and spray another time. But most of this stuff that was close enough for me to actually hit with the sprayer is, you know, already turning a really dark color compared to what it was. It used to all look like that back there. So I'll have to make up another batch in another week or so and hit the spots that I've missed. But I'll show you some of the rest of it over here too. See, some of this turned, some of it didn't. But this over here, almost all of this is turned. This whole bank is a really deep brown color now. Some of it's black, but a lot of it's a really deep brown color. When it dies, it turns pretty dark, almost black. But you can see it's pretty much killed all of this. It's still going to take a little while, but you can see this is after only 4 hours on a warm day, and you can see it's pretty much knocked it out. So there's still a little bit that you can tell I missed, but I'll get it next go round. Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you have any comments, please put them down below. If you know something that I don't, I'm always game to learn. So by all means, please tell me something. Most of this stuff I just kind of figure out as I go. I don't have like a biologist in my back pocket to help me. So anywho, till next time, bye. Okay guys, it just rained really heavy last night. The water level came up a lot, but it also got rid of all of that algae that was out here around the pond. So you can kind of see what it's done. It's knocked all the algae down. There's still a little bit on the top, but really there's not that much. I mean, there's little bits around some of the vegetation, but if you'll remember, all of this was covered, and the rain just knocked it down. There's a few little patches here and there, but for the most part it's gone. So copper sulfate worked.